And we're back.
And
for
we're
real.
back again. Hey! Welcome back.
Okay, so Cameron sits in the trunk of the Jeep, legs hanging out over the edge, dangling toward the ground that's further away than usual due to the tilt. He rests his back against the back seats, the angle providing a pleasant recline. Meanwhile, he fiddles with his old acoustic guitar that had been stashed in the Jeep for at least a year, tuning it slowly. He hadn't even remembered it was there until they folded down the seats for a place to try to sleep. He'd last played it at Devin's parents' house because they wanted to hear him play, and he'd just left it there in the Jeep afterwards. He hadn't had a reason to play it since. The rest of the night, or early morning, hadn't been terrible. Dev was easily comfortable, the hard surface not at all different from his side of the mattress, which was rock hard compared to Cameron's much squishier foam. He had tossed and turned until Dev finally pulled him to lay his head on the bear's stomach, the soft, warm surface enough to lull Cameron into a dozing state of consciousness, while Dev snored loudly. He'd gotten used to the snoring after all these years, and now found it comforting rather than annoying. It was good night, considering the circumstances. Dev had been unsure about sleeping in the tilted Jeep at all because it gave him a bad feeling. He also had a bad feeling about Cameron going back to the motel with them, so he'd left them here alone while the bear gathered up the rest of their stuff. 5 hours had passed since Artie texted Devin, so the bear had been getting antsy about that as well. They'd had a bit of an argument, and Cameron only agreed to stay behind when Dev promised not to go back to that forest to text Artie again. Now Cameron sits here moping, the feeling of a lopsided relationship returning.
I suck at guitar.
He mumbles to himself quietly out of habit, knowing people didn't like hearing it since he was good enough, which had been his goal. All of his singer-songwriter idols played guitar, and he'd wanted to be just like them. He'd forced himself to learn how to become good enough, with all the awkward fingerings, the constant tuning, and the pain of holding down steel strings with his finger pads, even after he built up calluses. And that's how he described guitar in general. A pain. He preferred the piano, and that's where he used to write all of his music. But the devastatingly sad men of the 90s Northwest indie music scene didn't play piano. They played guitar, because they were also rugged and tough, molded by the logging towns they originated from.
You're referring to grunge, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It was not your fault. It was mine.
See, for me and my music, growing up, I didn't really grow up with a lot of grunge. I grew up with, the emo stuff from the 2000s and stuff.
Grunge is more early 2000s and late 90s, but...
I thought it was early 90s, because of Nirvana and everything.
Oh, Nirvana, yeah.
Yeah, no, Nirvana was
That's
a
true.
pretty big one.
Yeah, and they do all play guitars. Yep, there we go. I was more emo punk. I was more emo punk myself, but yes.
Yeah, My Chemical Romance. I love Black Parade.
Nice.
I listened to Black Parade one time on a car trip to my grandparents, and I had to listen to it on repeat for 4 hours, so I got to learn how to sing it by the end.
Nice.
That's great. It turns out that one's image is just as important in indie as it is in pop, despite the former trying to convince itself it isn't.
Rude. True, but rude.
So Cameron had tried to conform to that, and in the end, it hadn't mattered. The hours and hours dedicated to learning the instrument through high school and college now felt wasted. Still, the feeling of the instrument is familiar in his paws, even if his fingers are already getting sore. He tries to think of one of his less embarrassing songs, one of the ones where he wasn't just wearing the influence of cloudy, dreary, northwestern cities on his sleeve, even though that's where he was from. He tried and failed to duplicate their poetic and opaque lyricism. Instead, he found himself slipping back again and again to the style of his own generation. While his idols of the 90s wove lyrics that forced the listener to delve into something complex, to find meaning in the metaphors and symbolism, singer-songwriters born in the 90s, like himself, presenting their lyrics in a more literal, honest way that often describes specific situations with seemingly nothing hidden. To Cameron, it was two sides of the same coin. Instead of discovering meaning in complexity, it was about discovering complexity in simplicity.
So, actually, I kind of like that personally, like the complexity and simplicity thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, I was born in the 90s myself.
Yep.
What do you guys think about that, though?
I mean, yes. I always enjoy... I am very pretentious as a general rule, which means I generally enjoy discovering the meaning and complexity.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also find that it's important, since I'm pretentious, to make sure to discover the complexity and simplicity.
Yeah, and I feel like the kind of books that I've also have been reading more so, at least for fun, they use a lot, like, and even actually in a writing class that I took, they actually have kind of like pushed towards a more simple writing style. And so like some of the statements that they make are very simple, but it's like, oh, ha, and you could like, it's, yeah.
Well, it's like young adult literature, right? Young adult literature is some of the deepest literature out there, but it's also not like, a classic novel where you're reading, words that you need to Google just to be able to read.
True, but at the same time, like, I think like the simple stuff sometimes like sticks out to you forever and everything, because like it is something that just has like that resonating note to you. So like, for example, one story that I still love to this day, it's not a book, but it was a visual novel in its own right, but I watched it as an anime for everyone who's listening to this, and it was Clannad. Have you ever heard of Clannad? So this was a visual novel that came out in like the mid-2000s. It got turned into an anime, I want to say in 2007. And what happens in that story is it looks like a just standard visual novel at first, but there is technically an after story when you go down one of the girl's routes. And in that after story, you get married and have a kid with this girl. However, they hinted very often in the first half that she was sickly. She didn't have a good constitution. And the second half, while you're leading up to her pregnancy and all that, they keep pointing out she doesn't have a good constitution. She should probably go to a hospital if she's going to have a kid and get a C-section or something. Only for the day she's going to give birth, there's a snowstorm that traps you in the apartment. And you have to basically have her give birth in the apartment.
Oh, gosh.
Jeez.
And what's interesting is, like, throughout like the story, they talk about how if you find happiness, it kind of can create miracles because like your happiness helps other people out as well. And literally, the point of the game is if you go through every single route that's available within the story, you basically release a little bit of happiness out into the universe or multiverse, I guess, in that instance. And they go out, and then eventually, if you get them all, when you go back to the after story for the main girl, at her birth, if you've collected all the happiness that's out there, it will kind of converge into that one point, so she survives the childbirth instead of dying.
Oh, wow.
And it creates an alternate reality where you do get a happy ending because there was enough happiness out in the multiverse.
Wow.
Nice.
But the reason why I like it isn't because like that complex, like, oh, it's like this really neat sci-fi-y type of story. It's more, the entire point of it was just finding happiness in life.
Yeah.
Finding happiness in what you do, finding people you love and care about, and that's it. That's the actual point of the story. Clannad is literally Celtic for like family.
Aww.
That's very sweet.
But yeah, that's enough of a distraction from the Sorry.
Alright. He sighs, deciding it was tuned well enough. He glances up, making sure Dev isn't heading back before playing. He was badly out of practice, but he starts to slowly warm up. Cameron sings quietly, almost under his breath. This particular song got the attention of an independent label on the West Coast after one of their scouts heard it on the college radio station. They'd signed him in his junior year of college. Looking back, it was the high point in his life. Dev had celebrated in earnest, happily telling him that he'd make more money than he himself ever would. But what Cameron didn't realize was that even after being signed, he could be dropped without releasing any of his music. And after what was probably the lowest point in his life, they did just that. Dropped over text message with his agent saying the demos he'd made in studio weren't up to their quality standard. That hurt. A lot. Because he knew it was true. He'd been nervous the entire time. And his output wasn't even close to what he was capable of. Though he tried to comfort himself with the idea that most musicians, when it alone these days, his own postings on the internet barely got more than a few dozen listens. Then he finally realized that he was in it for the wrong reason. His peers just liked playing music, throwing stuff out into the ether, whether anyone heard it or not. Cameron needed an audience to stay motivated, to be famous. So, in a way,
I fucking deserved it.
At least Devin never brought it up. Cameron stops playing, having seen brownish fur out of the corner of his eye. He thinks it's Dev and immediately feels his face flush, freezing and just sitting there. This is why he didn't play or sing in a serious way these days. Now it just feels like showing off a skill that he was never really skilled at in the first place. But after a while, he doesn't hear anything. No voice, no footsteps, and biting through his embarrassment, Cam looks up the road where he'd been certain that his boyfriend had been watching him.
Dev?
The silence is heavy and thick.
I just got this weird feeling and everything went real quiet.
Cameron stares up the empty road, the feeling of unease growing until he finally shoves his guitar to the side and pulls out his phone, tapping on a mindless gaming app to distract himself.
Nope. Not doing this again. Not right now.
And even though the road remains empty, and even though the sun shines brightly above, illuminating everything around him, the feeling of what is becoming a very familiar dread continues to grow. Then that light, shining down on everything, changes, shifting to a more golden glow.
What the hell is going on?
Cameron had a few bad trips in the past, shrooms being the worst, and that was what gave him his first panic attack. In a strange way, this feels very similar.
Please, not now. I have control, and I'm saying not now.
No control.
So there is something that I was noticing in Echo while playing forward through it. This seems to be something that is not great.
Yeah.
Is this like another entity thing?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
So
Alright.
I personally, I think you guys actually heard me use the voice at one point during the last Echo recording where I just went like, no control type of deal or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Whatever it is, it's not great.
Yeah. Okay.
It's fucking with him. You can tell.
So if you want, you can do your own ethereal spirit voice, if you want, or you can just read it however you like.
Okay. Alrighty. No control.
Shit.
That voice, well, that feeling, it instantly made all the fur on the back of his neck stand up.
Dev, come back now, please.
Cameron starts walking up the road, toward Echo, just under a mile away. The panic creeps up his neck, like he's
drowning.
Until last night, he hadn't had a panic attack in over 2 years. Now it's like his brain has relearned the spiraling process of gasping for air that's readily available, but still feels out of reach. He fights the urge, counting, trying to remember the pace of Dev's steady breaths. Hadn't he wanted to reject the idea that he needed Dev to face his fears? Doesn't he know how to handle this? How to do it safely? Cameron also knows that running to Dev will only make things worse for his boyfriend. Did he want to stress him out even more? The coyote stops, then turns around slowly. And just like that, the feelings of panic and terror slowly fade away to be replaced by a feeling of purpose. Something solid. Something resolute in its existence. Something that's already happened. Nothing can be done to change it. A feeling of acceptance. Cameron's walk slows to a more measured pace, mirroring someone just outside of his view. In another place. No, in this same exact place, just in a different time. Cameron knows what's happening, and he questions what he's about to do. But with this new feeling of calm assuredness, the coyote decides to let it happen. Dev didn't want him doing this because he's had a change of heart, but so is Cameron, and this is his choice to make. So, he lets it happen. And he senses this person. A girl. A feline. Walking just like him. Years and years ago.
So this is a new character. Obviously the narrator will still be the same, but since it is a girl, do you actually want to voice them, or do you want one of us to take over for her?
And I could voice her.
Okay.
She tries to keep her sobs quiet, walking along the road by the lake. She'd been looking forward to this for 2 months. She'd saved up money from babysitting jobs to buy her own dress, her own fake jewelry, and her makeup. Her father had found the makeup a week ago and threw it away, telling her only bad things happen to girls who wore makeup. And even then, she'd still had the dance to look forward to. But now, James, her ex from last year, had ruined it. He'd shown up drunk, proposed to her, then cussed out her new boyfriend, who she'd only been seeing for a month now, until he left. At least now she's glad she didn't have the makeup on with how wet her eyes are. This had been the last dance of the year at Echo High, and she was worried she was going to graduate with no boyfriend at all, and no money to go anywhere. Lost in her thoughts, she notices fast pounding footsteps only seconds before it happens. Before it happens. She sees James as it happens. She realizes what's happening in that same moment. Knowing him, this is actually something she expected. And in that moment, she decides that maybe this is for the best.
Cameron?
Oh, well, that's not great. Also, I forgot that she actually didn't speak. Oops.
Oh well.
I mean, it was like it was gonna change anything, I guess.
That's fine. No, that's fine. Alright. Lost in the vision, Cameron feels himself recoil from something touching him. Cameron loses his balance, windmilling his arms comically, and he has a split second to recognize Dev. The bear has his paw out, like he'd been resting it on the coyote's arm. The look of shock is mirrored on his boyfriend's face.
Genuinely, I kind of want the art gallery for this game, because this is just kind of cute. This picture of like the, oh fuck.
And they're both like, yeah, what's going on?
Before he goes over the edge and straight into the lake,
Cameron!
the coyote expects to go under and stay under, just like the girl from Echo High School. But a jolt goes through his body as his ass lands hard on the rocky surface of the lake, just a foot below the surface, and Cameron yelps loudly.
Fuck.
Cameron looks up to see Dev getting ready to jump in.
I'm fine.
At first, Cameron is just embarrassed, like he got caught doing something he shouldn't. Which is sort of the case, at least in Dev's mind.
It's not as deep as it used to be.
What?
As he climbs out with Dev's help, though, that embarrassment changes to anger. The coyote grunts and snarls quietly as he automatically starts stripping off his clothes, his plaid shirt and jeans sticking to him in the most annoying way. Dev hovers over him, trying to help, but mostly getting in the way.
Dev, you have a list of people who died in this lake, right?
What? What are you talking about? You just fell into a lake. Stop talking about this shitty town and let's make sure you're...
Oh, that's real rich coming from you. I've been saying that to you for the past 5 years, and yet here we are. So no, I won't stop. Give me the list or I'll look it up myself.
Dev glares, making himself look big. But Cameron doesn't budge, even though in that moment he realizes his phone got wet, and he can only hope that it's still going to work after this. After a few seconds, the bear deflates.
Please, I just want to go out of here. We'll do whatever you want afterwards. Let's just get home first.
That cools Cameron's outrage for the time being, never having seen Dev look so defeated.
We will go home. And I'm sorry for being like this. But you have to understand that this is changing everything for me. And I just need this for a little bit, okay?
Okay, but I'm not leaving your side until we're out of this town, okay?
Didn't I tell you that this was a bad idea at the very start?
Cameron tries to lighten the mood a bit, not liking the conflicts they are having on this little trip. They hardly had any before coming here. Now they have such different ideas of what they should be doing. It's like they're in a tug of war. Dev takes out his phone, bringing up the document he'd been using to map out the supernatural happenings and history of Echo.
So, it was a girl, teenager, a bobcat, from like the 50s, I think? A student from Echo High School.
Dev raises his brows, scrolling slowly on his phone. Then he looks back up.
Yeah, June 1954. A bobcat drowns after committing suicide by jumping in the lake, reportedly after an argument with her ex-boyfriend.
So the fucker got away with it.
Who? How does your tail feel, by the way?
Dev is running his paw along his tail, feeling out the vertebrae. Cameron finds the bear's disinterest in all of this more and more irritating, especially now that he's found out what it feels like his purpose. He can help somehow. Dev hits a bruised spot on his tail, and the coyote yelps before shoving his paw away.
Ow! Not now, Dev! Listen, her boyfriend killed her. I saw him run up and push her into the lake.
Did you have to experience that? Do you feel okay?
Dev, I'm not important here. This is about someone who got murdered, and some piece of shit got away with it.
First of all, don't call yourself unimportant. You're still alive, and you need to keep it that way by not falling into lakes because of these awful visions.
I need to tell her family, or at least someone, so people know the truth.
Dev frowns deeply at the coyote.
Listen, babe, I know you can see things that I can't and all, but I gotta be honest and say say that no one's gonna care. They're dead. The girlfriend, And more than likely her ex, too.
That's short-sighted as hell, Dev. He could definitely still be alive, having lived a full life after murdering someone. And she might have siblings who are still alive, or I don't know. I think someone probably gives enough shiva. Wow, that was a hard one to say. She might have siblings who are still alive, or I don't know. I think someone probably gives enough of a shit about her to want to know.
And then what? You go up and tell them that you're psychic and you had a vision with their loved one dying? Besides, I think they probably all know what happened. There just wasn't enough evidence.
Cameron feels his face get hot, glaring at the asphalt.
You wanted me to do this, and you wanted answers. Why are you holding me back now?
Because I'm terrified right now of this town, of the ghosts, of you getting hurt somehow because of this rate. Because with the rate things are going, it's what's probably gonna happen. I want to know where Lupita is, but she died because I made stupid mistakes. I can't have the same thing happen with you.
Oh, remember how I mentioned how I reviewed the first 3 episodes?
Uh-huh.
I saw something in there that I think all of us forgot about. When he was about to choose which direction to turn, it says that he saw something pink floating in the lake, not Lake Emma. So it sounds like Lupita had drowned at some point in the past. And I think that the pink thing floating in the lake that he saw in his own eye when he chose to drive towards Echo was him thinking about Lupita again. So that pushed him to choose this.
That makes sense.
Also, something else that I noticed very interestingly about Echo versus Arches, there's not been a single dialogue choice in Arches at all.
No, there hasn't.
Well, in Echo, here, have another dialogue choice. Have 800 of them. Pick
Yeah.
whatever you want.
Pick who you want to lean on.
Yeah.
Dang, this moment's like a bombshell drop.
Yep. Cameron's face gets hot again as he realizes Dev is about to cry, and his resolve wavers. He starts to step forward, to hold Dev like the bear had held the coyote so many times. But then, the two of them look up the road to see a rather small sedan pulling up the road, a figure inside waving enthusiastically through the windshield.
What the hell? Where's his truck?
Oh,
This could be you.
all right. Devin, Cameron, sorry I'm late. Had trouble finding the road. Then I had some trouble driving on it. Did I catch you in the middle of some?
Where the hell is your truck?
Huh?
Look at my Jeep. I told you I was stuck, man.
Well, this is not the reunion I was expecting. I thought you just wanted a ride. Besides, even if I pulled you out, your Jeep's fucked. I can tell from here.
Be nice, Dev. He's doing us a favor.
Hey, Cam.
Hey, Artie. I fell in the lake, so that's why I'm half naked right now.
That's hilarious. Did you push him in, Devin? Already makes me feel like I'm back in college.
Oh my god!
Hey, are you guys ghost hunting? Can I join in before we head out?
Nope.
Why not?
Because we're done.
Wait. Remember my color theory thing?
What?
Remember my color theory thing from last time? I said that they looked like they were 2/3 of color theory because Cameron's green, Devin's red. They looked like they were missing either a blue or a yellow. Artie is blue! Yay!
It's blue!
He's neutral.
I'm so glad my color theory is kind of weirdly working.
Wolves.
Dev, we can probably walk around a little bit before we go. He went on a really long drive.
What?
Dev sounds incredulous, and Cameron can understand why. But despite what the bear had said moments ago, he still wanted to explore further. Cameron knows that once he leaves, he'll probably never come back to this place again. Damn, Dev, did the two of you switch places or something? Anyway, I agree with Cam. I gotta stretch my legs out a bit. Dev looks down at Cameron, completely at a loss for words. Cameron can't meet his gaze, So he looks down the road, towards Echo, towards the place that he's positive has more answers to all his questions. He needs this.
And that is the end of the Point 2 build.
Aw, bugger.
To be continued.
When the Point 3 build, or whatever they're going to call it, comes out, I'm definitely going to try and get us all back together, and I'll see if anyone else wants to join us too.
Yeah. We have 3 voices now, after all.
Mm-hmm. Unless you really want to voice Artie.
I mean, whatever works out. So.
We'll find out. But yeah, I think this could be, I think it could be really fun to see what Arches is going to look like in the future, especially since at a point 2, that hints that maybe there's still like 80% of the story left.
Yeah.
And with just this 20%, like, I really like it personally.
Yeah. I do think that Deb and Cam are going to have either they're going like way apart, or they're going to work out their issues and make more even their relationship dynamic.
Yeah, like that's the thing that I was gonna ask you guys about, like, because I don't think I did ask this, but one of the things I noticed in like my first playthrough was that it did seem like there was a little bit of like a struggle of like, this doesn't feel completely like a fair and balanced relationship. It was lopsided at various points. And so, yeah, it definitely needs to be balanced out and figuring out like, how do they get them to have themselves to have like a balanced relationship where both feel like they're equally contributing to it, you know?
Yep.
So I'm curious to see how that goes. I'm also curious to see how Arturo fits into all this.
Yep.
Because it looked like at the beginning, like when Dev's like saying like, yeah, I picked Artie because he was the top on the list. Like Cameron kind of like needling those questions like the why Artie, why him, almost sounded like Cameron was jealous. And now like that Artie's there, you see Devon's the one that's fed up with Artie, while Cameron's like the one that's like, nah, we should be nice to this guy.
Well, Devon he's very concerned about his boyfriend, whom he loves very much, right? And his boyfriend sees this all as his fruition, which it kind of is, right? Like but their first encounter nearly got them killed, and actually even this encounter where he was discovering the real story of what happened to this woman, he, almost died.
Yeah, had he been in that time period for real, like in the 1950s, he would have drowned, because in Echo, at some point, they mentioned the lake had dropped in level of how much water was in there. Mm-hmm. So before, you could have drowned in there. Now it's only a foot deep, so... Yeah. Because there was like a drought that was going on for 3 years by the time Echo starts, and I don't think they ever say the drought disappeared, so it sounds like that they're at like 8 years of drought now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking forward to more Echo. Hope you guys are too. And hope whoever is listening in the audience, by the time we probably upload this for real, it probably will have either the entire thing out or like more of the game. So,
yep, stay tuned.
Woo. Alright, say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.